Hi, I'm Susanna Rosenblatt with the United Nations Foundation's Global Health Team, and I'm excited to be joined today by Peter Sands, Executive Director, of the GlobalFund, and to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And we'd love to talk to you today about how the work of the GlobalFund helps bring us closer to achieving this goal of WHO and of health for all.
Well, as you know, Susan, the GlobalFund is a unique public-private partnership focused on ending the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And very much the focus of my discussions here during the WHA have been about how we play our part in the achievement of the broader goal of achieving SDG 3. One of the key indicators of SDG 3 is ending the epidemics of the three biggest infectious disease killers, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. That's where we play a vital role.
Thank you. That's so helpful to hear. And so focusing in on one of those specific disease areas, malaria is a disease we know amazing progress has been made against malaria, yet at the same time there's surges coming up in different areas around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about progress against malaria?
You're right. Malaria is in some ways a great story. There has been a massive reduction, over 50% reduction in malaria mortality and significant reductions in prevalence. But it's also quite a challenging story because the latest information shows some countries continuing to make good progress towards elimination, and yet many of the highest burden places are seeing either a stalling of progress, as in some places actually a bit of a resurgence. So we need actually to redouble our efforts on malaria. This is not a time for being complacent or for pulling back at all. This is actually a time where we need both domestic governments to mobilize resources and deploy them against malaria, and institutions like the GlobalFund. We are nearly 60% of international funding of malaria, so we're conscious we play a critical role here. Together we've got to work with our partners to beat malaria. And doing what we're doing now is just not quite good enough. We've got to get more effective, and we've got to commit more resources.
Right, accelerate that progress is critical. So one thing that we can think about when we consider the three disease areas that the Global Fund deals with, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, is so many of the individuals that are dealing with those diseases live in challenging environments. So how does the Global Fund work and operate to address the three disease areas in complex environments?
You're absolutely right in that these three infectious diseases, the people who are most vulnerable to them are either in remote and difficult or war-torn places, or they're marginalized populations in more stable societies. In one way or another, they're the people who are more difficult to reach or find it more difficult to access services. And that's where I think the Global Fund's flexible partnership model is critical, because it enables us to work with different partners depending on the situation. So we're deeply involved with working with different elements of civil society who can operate either in places where it's very difficult for governmental agencies, or can reach out to populations which are equally difficult to access. So we have a range of different ways we operate in depending on the environment. I don't want to suggest that it's easy or that we always get it all right or overcome all the challenges, but I think that flexibility and partnership model is critical to reaching the people who most need our support.
Mr. Sands, thank you so much for your time, for speaking to us today, and for your commitment to this important work.
Thank you, Susan.